Welcome to the Hope Sports Podcast, where we believe the best way for you to unlock your full potential is by living into your purpose. We believe discovering your purpose is the only way for you to live a meaningful life. I'm your host, Olympic gold medalist Laura Wilkinson. And each week, I have the privilege of connecting with a different elite athlete to discuss how they win big in and out of their sport. We want you to compete better and live into your purpose, so stick around to hear about an amazing opportunity that we have for you. But first, let's talk about today's episode. This week, we're joined by Olympic marathon runner Ryan Hall, and it was such a treat to connect with him on the show. You'll hear about his incredible accomplishments throughout his career and his mountaintop experiences as an athlete. But what I hope you really take away is how he overcame seasons of immense struggle in his life. He has so much wisdom to share with each of us as we run our own race, and his message is so encouraging. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Ryan Hall, thank you so much for coming on the Hope Sports Podcast today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, okay, for those listening that may not know your background, can you kind of take us through how you got into sports in the first place and how that led you to running?
Yeah. So my dream growing up was to play professional baseball. The problem was I was, going into high school, like 100 pounds and 5 foot tall. So that's not the ideal frame, it turns out, for baseball. I was training really hard. I remember I would throw pitches against a backstop my dad had built for me in our backyard for hours and hours, and pretend like I was like winning the World Series or whatnot, So I had the dream, I had the drive, but I just didn't have like the physical makeup to make that a reality, Mm-hmm. And I was grateful that I learned that at a really young age, because if I would have kept going down that road, it would have felt like I was hitting my head against the wall for a long time, because that's just not how God designed me. So it happened one day when I was going down to a basketball game, and I never played. I always sat on the bench in basketball. I was good enough to get on the team, but that was about it. And I remember looking out at a lake in my hometown, Big Bear Lake in Southern California, and just feeling like God just kind of planted this little seed of a desire to try and run around the lake, which is 15 miles around the lake. So it's a big first run. I wouldn't recommend that for a first time runner. It's not a good starting point usually. But that's just kind of who I am. I'm a dreamer. I love dreaming big dreams. But I felt like this one was there's something different about this dream, because I hated to run. I didn't like it at all. Every time I was in PE class and kids, have to run the mile, I'd be just like all my classmates, be like, no, I don't want to run the mile today, But then I'd go and I'd run hard and I'd run well, but it wasn't my passion, I didn't enjoy it. So there's hope to any listeners out there that maybe think you're not ever going to get into running because you hate it. That can change. It changed for me that day. I went out and I ran the 15 miles around the lake with my dad the following Saturday. And
wait, so there was no preparation for this? You just went out and ran it with him?
Yeah. So
wow.
I got home from the basketball game. I told my dad what I wanted to do, and then the next weekend we went out and did it. And it was a long, slow, painful effort. I felt like I was out there for days and days. It wasn't just like I just went out and just breezed through it, no problem. It wasn't that way at all. It was really, really challenging. So, and I came home and I collapsed in the couch and super tired, super fatigued. And again, I felt like I was kind of telling me he'd give me a gift to run with the best guys in the world, but he gave me that gift so I could help other people. And I think that was the launching point in my entire career, and I knew what it meant to run with the best guys in the world. I'd seen the Olympics. So right off the bat, I was like, that's where I'm going, always had that belief from that moment when I was 13. But I didn't understand how you can help other people through running. And that would happen, kind of down the line, actually right after the Beijing Olympics, when I learned how powerful and impactful sports can be to change people's lives on the other side of the globe from us.
Oh, I love that. I do have to ask though, is your dad a runner?
He was, yeah, and he still is. He's actually the only one who's still running in our family. We all ran, and all the kids stopped, and he's still going. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that run took a lot of patience on his end, because he was fit, running marathons, and so he probably felt like we were out for a walk, a long, long walk.
We'll just call it father-son bonding, right? That's
good. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, so you ran through high school then, and it led you to Stanford. What made you decide to go to Stanford?
Yeah, it's feel like God does this to me all the time, because it was the one school I'd ruled out as like, I'm not going to Stanford. At the time, they were like the running powerhouse school, and like it's like the trendy place to go. And like, I have never been one of those people who likes to follow trends, So like, it was like all pride, like all my pride was like, I'm not going there. Everyone goes there. And then there was also like the academic piece, because, I got good grades in high school, but I took very basic level classes. Like I didn't take like honors or AP stuff in high school. So I wasn't prepared for the academics at Stanford at all. So I knew that was going to be a stretch for me if I ended up going there. But then one of my friends, Drew Ryan, he introduced me to the coach. We were up there at a cross country meet during my senior in high school. And the coach was like, hey, we should just go around. I'll show you the campus and stuff. And I talked to him. I really liked the coach. And then I did go on like 4 more recruiting trips to different schools. And ultimately, I remember I was sitting in the church at Stanford. Have you been in the church?
I haven't.
Oh, it's amazing. In the quad, there's this like beautiful, beautiful church, like something that you'd see in like Italy or something. And I remember I was sitting in there and I was trying to decide where to go to school, and I was praying. And again, I just felt like kind of the prompting of God to go to Stanford. And again, like it was not an easy road at Stanford. Like I struggled hard, like in every aspect of life. The only thing that was like really stable for me during my 4 years at Stanford was my relationship with Sarah, who's now my wife, but we dated all throughout my time at Stanford and her time at Stanford. And without that, like literally like nothing would have been going well for a long, long time, because academically, like my teachers were very, very concerned that I'd even like make it through. So I was so far behind everyone else. And then you're trying to just juggle so much as a student athlete. And at Stanford, they don't cut you any breaks. We're in the same classes, with the same expectations. Like we're not getting any special treatment. So it was a real struggle. And then there's like all these injuries that came, and up into that point, like early on in my career at Stanford, like my whole identity was kind of wrapped around how I performed. And so when I looked in the mirror, like that's what it was all about. And it worked out when I was in high school, because I was performing at a really high level, like set a state record in the 1600 my senior year, and had a very good high school career. But then when things started going downhill, that just totally, it's like someone took the rug out from under me, because now when I looked in the mirror, I didn't like who I saw, because I wasn't performing well on the track. So that was a huge shift that happened. Actually, I got really depressed during my sophomore year at Stanford, left school. I thought that I could change what was going on the inside of me by changing my external situation and circumstances. So I went home back to Big Bear for winter quarter of my sophomore year. I didn't know if I was going to come back. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to like sort stuff out inside me, because I could just feel this like real heaviness and this real kind of like lack of love for myself, So I ended up choosing to go back to Stanford and just spend a lot of time with God, and really like learning to see myself how he sees me. And as I kind of was able to adopt that view, it was super powerful, and like getting away from that performance burden that I'd been carrying around my whole life, really. And sports kind of started to become fun again, because I was okay with failing and messing up and getting it wrong, and it wasn't an instant change. It's not like I went back and got all this figured out in like a week, and then a week later it was running fast. Like it was a long, slow, gradual shift that kind of happened. It started from the inside, and then it slowly started to come out externally. And then I started performing better and better in cross country and track, and was able to sign a contract with ASICS coming out of college, and run professionally for 10 years and go to a couple Olympic games and have some pretty cool experiences. But it was a tough road getting there, and I learned and grew so much through it all.
I love that. Well, I love that you said it wasn't just an overnight thing. Like that stuff does take time. And a lot of times we just get frustrated and we try to run away. Just like what you were saying, it just resonates so much with me and athletes that I know. And I love that you stuck with it, and you knew the change was coming, because it had to. You had to start from the inside to make any kind of difference. That's awesome. And your wife, Sarah, who was your girlfriend at the time, was your stability, I guess, through college.
Yeah.
So what was it like kind of, you're dating her, then you get married, and you guys are both runners. Is that a good thing, or is there some conflict there? I mean, what is that dynamic like?
I definitely think it's a good thing, because the runner, like to be a professional runner, it's not just like a sport or hobby, it's like an entire lifestyle. So if you're married to someone who's not willing to allow you to live that lifestyle, like your running wouldn't work at all. Like you'd have to like stop running to make that work, or you just have to sacrifice and not like develop your talent to the full level in the running realm. But for Sarah and I, it's nice because we were both going after the same thing, same lifestyle. I mean, like the lifestyle I'm talking about is like you're constantly like eating healthy, sleeping a ton, going to bed at like 8:30 at night, getting up at 7, taking afternoon naps and stuff. Like, so it was a blessing for us because we got to spend so much time together because we're both literally like just out training and then at home together. So it was really cool season of life. And even now still, like, I'm retired, but my lifestyle hasn't shifted a whole lot. I don't take as naps in the afternoon or sleep as much anymore, but we're still together all the time, and I coach her, so I'm even out there when she's running. Only I'm on a bike now. It's only when I can be alongside her.
Nice change of pace there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, in 2007, you won the Houston Half Marathon in a time of 59 minutes and 43 seconds, the first American to break the 1 hour mark for a half marathon. And you still hold the American record for the fastest half marathon. Was that the event that you have the record? That's so cool. So what was that race like?
Yeah, that was, telling the story of like running with the best guys in the world. That was kind of the first time that was an actual reality. I had competed at the World Championships in track and competed in Europe on the track, but I was never really in the race. Like, I can remember running 5Ks against the best guys in the world, and I'm like watching on the Jumbotron as they're finishing, and I'm like on the other side of the track, so it's like, this isn't really running with the best guys in the world. I may be in the same race, but I'm not really in the same race. But as I moved up to the longer stuff, things just really started to click. And so at the time when I ran that time, 59:43, that was one of the top 10 times like ever run for that distance. So like now it's more commonplace. You see a lot of guys under an hour. But at the time that was kind of rare territory. So that was kind of the moment where it's like, whoa, like now, like it's like you have the vision for a long time, you're kind of chasing the vision, and then you have that moment where you realize it and you're in it and you're kind of like at the top of the mountain. That was kind of the experience there. But it was the same as what you hear most athletes talk about their greatest performances. It felt really easy. It felt like I could have done another one afterwards, and you finish the race and you're like, oh, I can definitely run faster than that. And then, I never even got within a minute of that time after that. So,
wow.
That's why as an athlete, like when you have those mountaintop experiences, and with athletes I'm working with now, I just tell them, like, guys, like, soak it in, because you may think you're going to run faster, and you might. I hope you do. I hope I'm wrong. But even if you don't, like, let's make sure we enjoy this moment for what it is, because we don't know. We don't know what the future holds,
Exactly. Well, and just a couple months after that, in April, you placed 7th in the London Marathon, and it was your first ever marathon in 2:08, and the fastest debut marathon by an American. I mean, that's pretty insane. Had you been planning on doing marathons for a while? Like, what made you kind of graduate to these longer distances?
Yeah. So it's actually the experience I was telling you about being on the track in Europe and watching the guys finish. That was the moment where, for a while as an athlete, you're kind of developing. You don't even really know where your gifts and talents really truly are, especially in the running realm. You don't know how fast your foot speed is, and that kind of dictates a lot with elite distance running. But it was at that time where I realized, like, 5K, like, I'm just not going to be competitive. So I need to be humble enough to move up, even though I didn't necessarily want to. And then, like I said, as soon as I moved up, like, things just really, really clicked. And so I was actually training for my first marathon when I ran 59 minutes in the half marathon. So I just changed my training up and was running more than I'd ever run before, doing longer, harder workouts. And that's kind of when things really, really clicked in my body and took off. And I was planning on running the Los Angeles Marathon, actually. It was going to be my first one. And then Houston happened, and then the doors kind of opened for me to get to go to London. That was such a cool experience because, I got to race against guys like Haile Gebrselassie, Paul Turgot. These are guys who were the greatest greatest runners of all time in that era. And it was just really surreal to be running next to them at mile 14, going across Tower Bridge, with all my heroes of running and stuff. Is kind of another one of those moments where you're like, this is what I pictured, when I was 13 on that couch.
That's so cool. It's so epic. I love it. You paint such a good picture of that. Well, that same year in November, you won the U.S. Olympic team trials in the marathon in 2:09. I mean, that's pretty insane. You just started running marathons that year and you made the Olympic team. I mean, what was that like? Were you planning on, I know you said you wanted to run against the best guys in the world. Was the Olympics always part of that dream, or did that just kind of come up as you ran these longer distances?
Yeah, it's part of the dream, and they still don't have a half marathon in the Olympics. So if you're going to run longer than 10K, it has to be a marathon distance.
So what was it like at the Olympics? Was it everything you dreamed of? Was it totally just, were you kind of in shock or in awe? Like what was your race like? Was it what you expected or what you hoped for?
Yeah, it lived up to its expectations in many ways. Like the hype, being in the village, I'd watch Cool Runnings a million times or whatever.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's so good. And you're always wondering, was it actually like an Olympic Village and stuff, And that part of the experience was it was just, and I remember walking out of the closing ceremonies next to Yao Ming, he's super tall and we're in China. And so all the people are just going crazy on him and stuff. And, so there was moments like that where I was like, wow, this is really, really amazing experience. And I feel so honored to get to be here. But then in terms of, what I dreamed of as a kid, I didn't necessarily have to win the gold medal or even podium, but I just really wanted to have my best stuff on that day, be at the best version of myself, be as fit as I'd ever been, have my Houston day, but at the Olympic Games. That's what I wanted the most, But what I've learned with sports is sometimes no matter how much you want it, no matter how well you prepare, no matter how good of a coach you have everything in place. Sometimes things just don't click, and I haven't figured it out completely, but I've certainly just experienced that where it's I didn't change anything up. I'm the same person. I'm training the same way. I'm eating the same way. I'm sleeping, doing everything the same, and having two very different results, one just effortlessly floating through a race, 6 months before that. And then 6 months later, I'm just struggling in my fitness. So that was kind of my story leading up to the race. My fitness wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be. Training had been rocky, kind of up and down, and just been kind of struggling, So on the starting line, I was nervous, but I still had the outside hope of trying to grab a medal, I had just run the London Marathon again for my second time, ran personal best, ran 2:06 and finished 5th. And so, those are the best guys in the world would all go to London. So I was if I was 5th in London, maybe I could pick up a couple more spots and grab a medal in Beijing. But that wasn't my experience. Unfortunately, I wasn't at my best at the Olympics, but that was such a great experience for me to get to grow through. So I remember doing a warm-up run the day before a marathon. We always just jog 30 minutes, do some drills and strides. And during that time, I like to sometimes do it by myself and just have a little conversation with God and be what do you have for today, or for tomorrow? What do you want to tell me? And, I was always hoping he was going to give me some verse about David and Goliath or something like that, or soaring on wings of eagles and, effortlessly flying through the race. But he actually reminded me of this story during that moment of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which, they were the guys who were being thrown into a fiery furnace, and the king, because they wouldn't worship the king's idols, Nebuchadnezzar's idols, and this is way back in the day. And I just love their response to the king. They're even if God doesn't show up, we're not going to bow down and worship you. And I think that was really the word God had for me for my race the following day was you need to set your heart in such a way to where even if you don't perform how you hoped, dreamed, planned it out, drew it up in your head, it's not going to change your heart towards me or even my heart towards myself, finding that I'm still of worth, I'm still of value, even if I don't have my best performance on the day when I want it more than anything else, It's if I could order it on one day, it'd be today. But how am I going to respond if that's not the case, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it really, really helped me during that race. Another thing that helped me, because I found myself about halfway into the Olympic marathon back, way back. So it went out really fast, even though it was super hot and humid in Beijing. And I was back in like 30th or 60th. I don't remember what place I was in, but I was way back. And I was kind of pouting to myself, you know, I was like, what's going on? I'm so frustrated. How come I'm so far back? You know, these are the thoughts that are going through my head. And again, I felt like I was just kind of telling me, like, I want you to start encouraging people around you, which is really odd because in our sport, that doesn't happen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Usually guys aren't cheering for each other when they're running, which is fine, you know, I get it. But so I started to do that. I would catch a guy and I'd be like, hey, good job, man. You're doing great. Let's work together and try and catch a group in front of us. Or I'd just say a couple words, you know, just trying to encourage them a little bit. But again, it was like getting to my heart, and it was making me get outside of myself and think about other people and trying to help and encourage other people. And as I did that and I stepped out in that, I found that I started to get encouraged. I started to feel better about my situation. I think it was because whenever you're internal and you're in a lot of pain and suffering, like you are in a marathon, the more internal you are, the more you're aware of all this pain, you know? Like if I'm thinking about other people, other things, I'm outside myself, then I'm able to push harder because I'm not as aware of the pain. Because I found like whatever you focus on, it's going to increase, or at least the sensation is going to increase. So it just really allowed me to get outside myself and start encouraging some other people. And then I started to work my way up and ended up finishing in 10th position, which still, you know, wasn't what I hoped for, but it was the best that I could do on that day. And, you know, I'm still like very proud of that performance, even though, you know, it wasn't everything that I dreamed of.
I totally get that. We had a guest on one of our first episodes. He's a performance scientist, Dr. Ben Holtberg, and he talks about purpose-based identity and performance versus performance-based identity. And just like what you were saying, just having that purpose beyond yourself makes such a big difference, you know, for the people around you, but also for you. That's really cool that you could walk away, even though it wasn't maybe the finish you wanted, like you walk away with that amazing experience and that growth, you know, so cool.
Yeah.
So a year after Beijing, you and your wife, Sarah, co-founded the Hall Steps Foundation. I would love for you to tell us about your foundation.
Yeah. So this actually happened kind of in the wake of Beijing. Sarah and I became spokespersons for Team World Vision, and their goal for the Chicago Marathon that fall after the Olympics was to have about 500 runners come together, fundraise to bring clean water to a community in Zambia of 90,000 people that didn't have access to clean water. So we were just like spreading the word about it, you know, like just trying to tell as many people as we could, and just a part of that team. And so we had the opportunity after the Beijing Olympics to go to Zambia and watch them like cut the ribbons of these boreholes that had just been poured, you know, and they had access to clean water for the first time in their life. And I'll never forget, I was at a ribbon cutting ceremony, just like way out in the sticks in some little tiny village. And this village guy, and they all speak English there because it's like the business language, you know, so they learn it in school, which was really cool because I didn't think I was able to talk to anyone going over there. But he was telling me, he's like, hey, because you guys brought clean water to us, like everyone in my community, their life expectancy is going to go up by 10 years. And that was kind of the moment for me where going back to my 13-year-old self and hearing that like I'd been given a gift to help other people, that was kind of the moment it clicked. It was like, oh, like this is how you help other people through running. It's like I was a part of a team of people that did some fundraising, ran a race, and as a result now 90,000 people in Zambia are going to get to live 10 years longer. Like you're actually adding years to people's lives because you ran a race, you know? And that was just such a powerful moment for both me and Sarah. Like, you know, I went back home and I'd start training and I'd just be thinking about these kids that I interacted with, ran with over there that are in tattered clothes, but just the biggest smile on their face, you know? Like it's a very interesting interaction, whereas like, I wanted to help them in terms of like health, wellness, school, education, empowerment, all of that. But they also had something that like I think we're lacking here in the States, which is a real sense of community. You know, it's like when things are tough over there, like they have to rely on each other. And that just builds a really, really strong community. And as a result, at least this is my opinion, like they're just super happy people. Like I hadn't seen joy like that anywhere else in the world, despite such like amazing poverty, you know? So we were able to help, you know, on the bringing clean water to them, but they really like challenged me to like find joy in my life and find joy through community. So, you know, we came back home from that trip, and Sarah and I knew we wanted to do more. We knew we wanted to continue to support World Vision and the work they're doing, which is amazing work they're doing all over the world. But we also wanted to support other kind of local organizations and some of our own projects that we were excited about doing. So we started the Hall Steps Foundation, and it's basically set up the same as like Team in Training or something like that, where you can run any race in the US. You just go to our website, thestepsfoundation.org, sign up, and create a fundraising page. And then every single dollar that you fundraise for your race goes towards our project. So we're 100% volunteer run. So that's a really cool thing kind of about our organization is you know every single dollar is going towards the projects we're supporting. And we've gotten to support some really cool projects along the way. Like we partnered with one of my friends in Kenya. We helped to build a health clinic in his community that didn't have access to hospitals or health clinics. People have to take like buses for like 8 hours at a time. And if you have like his brother actually died of a snake bite that shouldn't have taken his life, you know, but he just didn't have access to the medicine he needed to fix the problem. So we partnered with my friend, Wesley Career. He's actually Boston Marathon champion. And we built this health clinic, and now people in that community have access to meet their medical needs. Things like that. We love doing like stuff with empowerment as well. So we partnered with Kiva. They do microloans to women in developing countries, help them start their own businesses so that they can work themselves out of poverty. And then we're doing a lot in Ethiopia as well, with mainly with childcare and trying to help them kind of get going a foster care system, actually, because they just closed down international adoption, which really kind of changed things in their country, because they still have a ton of orphans in their country, but now they're trying to figure out how they can take care of all those orphaned kids within the country. So we're kind of partnering with local organizations there to help bring those kids into families.
That's awesome. So many great things that you guys are doing through your foundation. I love it. At Hope Sports, we know that you want to be the best athlete that you can be. And in order to do that, you train hard and dedicate yourself to performing at your peak. But sometimes it can feel monotonous. Every day has a similar routine, and when you win, well, no victory feels as good as a loss feels bad. It doesn't have to be this way. We believe athletes can compete at their full potential and reach their dreams while feeling lasting satisfaction from their accomplishments. We understand what it's like when you've dedicated your life to something, but you feel like you're never living up to people's expectations and you don't feel satisfied with your achievements. Hundreds of athletes have told us that they've discovered how to compete at their best while finding lasting fulfillment in their achievements during our interactive international service trips. Our next trip is coming up June 7th through 10th in Rosarito, Mexico, and we want you to be there. It's so easy to get involved. Just go to hopesports.org, sign up for the June 7th through 10th home build, and build hope for a family and win like never before. So sign up today. It could be the key you need to find success in your career. Back to the running side of things, though. I know in 2011, you set a new PR at the Boston Marathon. You made the 2012 Olympic team. Like, things were looking good, but then you had to drop out of the marathon at the London Games around the 11-mile mark because of a hamstring injury. Like, what was that? I mean, you've dealt with injuries. You dealt with not feeling good. I mean, what was that like having to do that at the Olympic Games?
Yeah, it was definitely like one of those surreal moments where you feel like you're in a movie or a dream. You're like, did that just really happen? Like, because I had never dropped out of any race in my entire life, you know? Like, I never even stopped and walked in any race in my entire life. So, like, that was never an option in my mind. But I was having this sharp pain while I was out running, and just decided after having a little conversation with God that it was better to live to fight another day. And so, stepped off the course. I almost started running again just because it felt so wrong. I was like, this isn't right, not at all what I was picturing happening. But I stepped off and it was hard, but I'd been through so much discouragement and hard times, before that it really had kind of prepared me for that moment. So I was down. I was disappointed afterwards for a couple of days, but I like to do something that actually my wife kind of taught me, where it's like she allows herself to be really down, disappointed for a certain amount of time. So it could be a day, it could be 2 days, whatever she feels like she needs. And then after that, it's like, okay, now I'm moving forward. And then I've grieved the loss and now I'm moving forward. So I kind of did that, I had a couple of days, or maybe it was a couple of weeks. I don't remember exactly how long it was, where I was just really down and bummed out. But then I started moving forward. And the good thing about running is there's always big races to look forward to, whether it's the Boston Marathon, New York City Marathon, Chicago, London. There's all these big, great opportunities for runners to get to try and, win a title. So I just kind of kept moving forward, but it kind of started this nasty string of injuries. So the hamstring thing started because when I was actually training for the 2012 Olympic trials, I developed plantar fasciitis in my foot. And so I had to just run through it because there's no instant cure for plantar fasciitis. Usually just lasts a while and then it'll eventually get better. So I was running through it, and just very small alteration of my stride caused injury on the opposite side of my body. So with the hamstring, and then I hurt my hamstring, and then literally it was almost comical how ridiculous it was, because I was always really hardy, didn't have a lot of injuries before that, but it was then I tore my right quad, then I tore my left quad, and I got a sacral stress fracture on my right side. And it was just this ridiculous string of compensation injuries. So
Wow.
I learned a big lesson there about running through injuries and how detrimental that can be to your body. I did eventually come out the other side of that, where I stopped getting hurt, but then I kind of started struggling with I call it extreme fatigue. So, I had been running at that point for 16, 17 years and running 100 miles a week. So you're running 15 miles a day. And that's a long time to be running that much, and not just easy running. It's all pretty high quality. Well, not all of it. We have 3 high quality workouts per week. So just demanded a ton of my body. And it was kind of at that point where my body's there's nothing left. It's time for you to start slowing down and start giving back to your body. So after about that, it was a 4-year time frame from my injury at the London Olympics all the way till I was training for the 2016 Olympic trials, and still just having really bad fatigue issues. And I tried everything I could think to try. I worked with a whole bunch of different coaches, and tried mixing up my nutrition, tried rest. I tried, everything I think to try, and nothing was working. My body was just clearly tired and fatigued and ready for me to get back to it. So that's when I ultimately ended up deciding to retire from running and kind of move on into this next season of life.
Was that a hard transition, or, were you just kind of ready at that point?
Yeah, I was always nervous about the day I was going to retire, because running had been my craft, my passion, everything for 20 years, So I didn't know how I was going to react when I hung up my shoes. But kind of with how it ended, and just having it be kind of a long, slow, gradual 4-year process of coming to this realization that I'd gotten everything out of my body and there's nothing else there, allowed me to make the decision and actually feel kind of a sense of relief with it, which I was surprised by. I wasn't expecting to feel relief, but it kind of felt like I could finally look back in my career and be thankful for what I got to experience and the performances I did have, and then stop striving to try to get back to those. I could finally just fully appreciate it. And then also too, during that time, and actually while I was writing my book, a kind of powerful realization came to me that, my journey wasn't all about me. and now like I needed to take the things I learned in that season of my life and pull them into my next season of life, which is, writing, speaking, coaching, and try and help other people along on their own journeys that they're on.
Since retiring, you've transformed your body, gaining what, like 40 pounds of muscle? I'd love to hear about this.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like this is a big theme in my life where I don't enjoy doing something and then it kind of becomes like my passion and craft. So before, like I would do weight training for running, but never upper body. And I just always tried to get through it as fast as I could because it just wasn't specific for running really. Like I didn't see the correlation between lifting more weight and running faster, which was a wrong way of seeing it in hindsight. But all that to say, like I just didn't enjoy the weight room at all. And so when I retired from running, I retired at like about 3.5 years ago. I was 5'10" and 127 pounds, which was too light for me. I just needed to find something to give back to my body, and running is so catabolic in nature. It just strips your body of everything it doesn't need to run fast. So I kind of got into the weightlifting as a way to give back to my body, as a way to build it up and make it strong. And then also too, just because I was curious, like anytime I'd be around some big, strong person, I was always really curious just to like know what that would feel like to be big and strong. So I kind of started the journey, and it was really, really fun because one of the things I love about sports is seeing results and seeing progress. And I wasn't seeing that in running for 4 years. And then finally, with the lifting, like I was so bad at it, I had nowhere to go but up. So I always encourage people, like, if you want to like find a sport that's fun, like try something you're really bad at, and then it's gonna be so much fun because you're just gonna grow and get better and better and better. So that's kind of the journey I've been on. And it's just fun to, the other day I was squatting, I hit 390 for the first time, and it's just fun to see growth and just see. It's fun to get under a weight that you just failed at it like 100 times in a row, and then finally be able to get it up is just such an amazing like sensation. It kind of feels that need that I need to like see personal growth and to see physical growth in my body.
Mm-hmm. I love your attitude. I love how you always try stuff that you really don't want to do. And it's so cool. So cool. There's so many things that I just love and admire about you and your wife, but there's one especially that's near and dear to my heart, because I'm also an adoptive mom. I have girls from China and Ethiopia, and I know you and Sarah adopted 4 girls from Ethiopia. And I want to know all the things. What made y'all want to adopt? Why Ethiopia? What was that process like? And how in the world did you survive going from childless to parents of 4 girls overnight?
Yeah, I love telling this story because, again, like I just didn't see adoption at all growing up. So it wasn't so much that like I was opposed to it. It just wasn't on my grid. So I didn't have any desire to adopt until I met Sarah. But then Sarah's story is very much the opposite of that, where there was adoptive kids in her extended family, and she'd been around it, seen it, and always wanted to adopt ever since she was a little girl. So she actually mentioned it on our first date, and I was like, oh, whoa, like I've never even like thought about that, So that's kind of like when the ball started turning in my mind and started considering it. And then, fast forward years and years later after we're married and training professionally. And one of the things I loved about running was we got to train all over the world and go to beautiful locations to train and train with just really inspiring, incredible people from every different culture. And so we would go to Kenya and train. We ended up going to Ethiopia to train. And there was just something about Ethiopia that just kind of grabbed us and gripped us, where we just fell in love with the people and the culture and the country and the food and the music, just kind of everything about it. The running was fabulous. So it just kind of like really grabbed us. But one of the things that also grabbed us was being on the streets in Addis and driving around and just seeing all these kids out on the streets, orphaned and in tattered clothes and shining shoes. And kids would come up to me and ask to shine my shoes for like 10 cents. And they'd be so stoked if I gave them like equivalent of $1, So just that really pulled on our heart. And we're like, with our foundation, we're all about just taking our step. It's like, we can't force other people to take their step, but if everyone chooses to take their own personal step, we can see big change and big results. So that's our step was moving into the adoption phase of our life when we felt ready to take on parenthood. And so being in Ethiopia and seeing the orphans and having the opportunity to adopt from there, we decided we'd try and adopt an infant. Just one infant was our original plan. And so we were number like 76 on a wait list. And it was going to be a couple of years before we'd have our infant. And then what happened is we were overtraining in Ethiopia, and we went and visited the orphanages, and we noticed that there was all these older children in the orphanages that were waiting for families. And so I was like, this doesn't make sense. I'm like number 76 on a wait list, and there's all these kids that are waiting for families. And after it was the face-to-face interaction that really like broke my heart and like made me decide to adopt older children. Because after meeting the kids, playing with the kids, hanging out with the kids, I was like, man, I'd take any one of these kids home in a second, So we went home, we changed up all of our paperwork, had to change agencies even, and became aware of our daughters through a friend and Facebook page. Is kind of like a roundabout way, but they're really looking for a family for these 4 biological sisters. They'd been looking for a family for 3 years, weren't able to find a family. And they were talking about maybe sending 2 of them with one family in like Australia and 2 with another family in, I forget, Italy or something like that. And so, coming from a big family, I'm in the middle of 5 kids. I was like, you don't separate siblings. Like, they've already been through so much and they don't need to lose each other. So, we just felt kind of love in our heart for our girls. And I always like to tell people, like, there was a very real fear that was involved with adopting, and mainly a fear of my own inadequacy, like for example, our social worker, she wouldn't even approve us to adopt the 4 girls because she like didn't believe we could do it. So you talk about stuff that kind of like shake your own confidence, but instead of following that fear, I just followed like the love that God had put in my heart for my girls. And I knew if I had that love in my heart, that's what I needed. And I chose to follow the path of love. And when I'm at my best, I'm making decisions based on love, not based on fear. And so that's what we did. It was a leap of faith, but it's just been such an incredible road. And the girls have blessed us so much. And, actually going from 0 to 4 was, I think, in a lot of ways easier than like the normal route that you could take. Because like,
how so?
So like, for example, all we knew previous to this was just like Sarah and I, and then an empty house, and then our normal just changed just once. It changed from zero kids to 4 kids. And it didn't change like 4 separate times, where it's like you're getting used to 1 kid, and then you're getting used to 2, and then 3, and then 4. It's like every time you kind of shift your normal, there's always like a stirring and shaking that's like kind of like initially hard, but we just kind of had like one and done, So in a lot of ways, I feel like I kind of cheated the system. And also like our kids, when we adopted them, were 5, 8, 12, yeah, 12 and 15. So I've never changed a diaper. I've gotten woken up in the middle of the night maybe like twice in my life. So in a lot of ways, like, I have it pretty easy. Like, our kids were already like old enough to like, babysit each other at home and stuff. So we could go out for training and stuff, and they would be totally fine.
Now, you also have a new book out this month, as if you're not busy enough with those 4 girls, and it's called Run the Mile You're In, Finding God in Every Step. Please tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to share this story. Tom Dean at Zondervan, he's a runner, and he had approached me about writing a book, years and years ago, but I was still like very much in the middle of it, telling them my story. And then once I retired, he reached back out again, and the timing just felt right. I felt a sense of closure with that chapter of my life, and I felt ready to share the story with people. And I just found it to be a really therapeutic process for me to go through, to sit down and write every morning and kind of like make sense of my entire career and try and pull out all the biggest lessons from my career and share those with other people, just in the hope of, helping people on their journey. Like, I kind of wrote it from the perspective of, if I was my 13-year-old self getting into sports, like, what things would I want to become aware of? And like, 'cause I remember just being super curious, like, what does it take to get to the Olympics, And so like a lot of this is like my story of like learning what it does take to, get to the Olympics, or just for you to develop your own potential in your hobby, your craft as a dad, at work, like just for you to become the best version of yourself. And these were just like kind of lessons that I've been learning on my journey and continue to learn as I continue on my own journey.
Oh, I love it. It sounds so good. Where can we grab a copy of it?
Yeah, so you can get it on Amazon, and then also Barnes and Noble, and wherever else fine books are sold, I believe.
All right. Run the mile you're in, finding God in every step. Well, Ryan, where else can we follow you online to just continue to be encouraged by you, to learn more about the Hall Steps Foundation, all of the things?
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is Ryan Hall 3 on both of those. And then our foundation is thestepsfoundation.org. And then my wife and I, we also have a website, ryanandsarahhall.com. So those are all good places to track us down.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for just sharing your absolutely incredible story, encouraging us, and just inspiring us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Laura.
Wow. There is just so much powerful stuff in there. I know I've said that before, but these athletes are just sharing truth bomb after truth bomb. What I love most are the two strategies that Ryan shared that got him through difficult moments in his life. The first is solidifying his identity, that regardless of the results, he still has value and worth in the world. And second is turning his gaze outward. Remember when he ran a marathon and encouraged other people along the way? Not only is that an incredible blessing for those other people, but in turn, it shifted Ryan's own attitude and improved his morale and his results. Sometimes we can get stuck in a rut, and just by lifting up our eyes and looking to those around us that need help, it frees us. And all the work with the Hall Steps Foundation is so compelling. It has me wanting to strap on a pair of running shoes and raise money at a 5K. Maybe that'll be a great warm-up before I go dive in the pool. You should definitely check it out too and get involved. How awesome would it be to have a group of Hope Sports listeners mobilized to do amazing work in the world just by running? Drop a comment on our Instagram or tag us at your next 5K. We want to shout it from the rooftops. And if you want support in ways that you can grow as a competitor to overcome obstacles or to rock that 5K, head on over to laurawilkinson.com/performance to grab my free guide, 5 things that you can do today to become a more confident competitor. Again, that's laurawilkinson.com/performance. Thanks to Ryan for joining us today, and I hope you tune in next week for our chat with Olympic cyclist and Hope Sports founder, Guy East, as he shares about his journey through professional cycling, what caused him to hang up his bike for a few years, and what eventually led to the conception of Hope Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss that episode. On behalf of Hope Sports, I'm Laura Wilkinson. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by Evo Terra and Simpler Media. For more information on Hope Sports and to access the complete archives, please visit hopesports.org.